Hello, thanks for joining us on Encore. Coming up on today's film show, drawing on French talent, the lakeside town of Annecy is hosting the world's biggest animation festival. We check out a psychedelic animation from Japan that's been unearthed from the archives after more than 40 years. And a new film opening in France works its way through a few centuries of clichés surrounding Judaism. And as always, I'm joined by our film critic Lisa Nesselson. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Olivia.
We're starting with this festival in the very picturesque setting of Annecy by a lake. It's hosting the most important gathering of international animation from all over the world. This year, the home country, France, is being honoured, especially at the festival. Is the output that important from France?
Let me put it this way. When people outside of France think about France, items such as wine, cheese, fashion, existentialists spring to mind. But we should really add animation and animators, because a Frenchman, Émile Cohl, arguably made the very first animated films way back when, and today, inarguably, a Frenchman named Pierre Coffin came up with the Minions, who you may have run into, and he does their voices. So statistics released just last week confirm that French animated films and TV series are actually more successful than ever. How successful is that? We're talking about tens upon tens of millions of euros. 21.2 million tickets were sold last year alone worldwide for 38 French animated films. That's cartoons. The animated Little Prince, which premiered last May in Cannes, has sold almost 18 million tickets in 60 countries. And this year it came out in Italy, where over 1.5 million people have gone to see it. I don't want to bury you in statistics, but 75 French feature films have racked up 64.1 million tickets in the past decade. And French animators work on films all over the world. If you watch the closing credits, you can sub-vocalize a lot of French names because they're very employable.
And there's also definitely more appeal for adults, I'd say, at the moment. And indeed, one film that got a lot of adult, grown-up praise at Cannes this year is one that you're very fond of, My Life as a Courgette. That's being screened at Annecy too.
Yes, despite the strange title, which becomes clear when you see it. It's Franco-Swiss, and it is a just about perfect stop-motion tale. It premiered in Cannes, as you said. I don't think I have read a single negative thing about it anywhere. This is a movie everyone loves, although it's bittersweet, melancholy, think more Bambi than sort of rah-rah animation. So it's this melancholy tale, but it's hopeful, about a young orphan boy whose real name is Icar, but who wants to be called Courgette, who believes he's responsible for his mother's accidental death. He's taken to an orphanage, he's pretty depressed, but then he makes friends, and he has the first stirrings of young love, and all of these kids are very distinctive, and as you can see, they have really big heads. I love
and
this
his
film.
name's Courgette,
And his
which
name's
is definitely unique. Another animated feature being released in France this week, which was being screened out of competition at Annecy, is called Belladonna. It's from Japan.
Belladonna is a stunning oddity. It was animated in Japan back in 1973, so over 40 years later, I have to say it is still way, way out there, visually and thematically. There are tons of flagrant hand-drawn sex scenes, and it has a massive feminist vibe grafted onto a French novel about the Dark Ages. In other words, not something you see every day. The director likes femme fatale. In 1969, he tackled Scheherazade, and then in 1970, Cleopatra. So this is set in the Middle Ages in Western Europe, and it gets the psychedelic treatment. This is a movie about the power of women and how that seems to scare a lot of men, but of course we've grown out of that. Jeanne, a 14th century French peasant girl, is madly in love with her boyfriend, but the local lord rapes her because, he has that option. So then she sells her body and soul to the devil in hopes of exacting revenge. She becomes an all-powerful sorceress, and she hides out in a valley where the poisonous hallucinogen Belladonna grows. So we have lots of drugs, lots of sex, and a pleasingly pop 70s rock score.
And going from the visuals, it's quite a stylized aesthetic. It's got this quite specific look.
Exceedingly stylized, definitely inspired both by the source novel by Jules Michelet, who published it back in 1862, and by the pop art quality inspired by, say, Gustav Klimt, Aubrey Beardsley, Alphonse Mucha, among others. If you know your art from that era, there's a lot going on there.
Okay, so
it is proudly pagan, so let us take a look.
青く透き通るこの肌を
どっから来たの？
私はいつもあなたのそばにいた。わかりますよ、ジャンヌ。あなたのことなら何でもわかるんです。
あなたは悪魔です。
We're moving to a French release now, co-written and directed by actor Yvan Attal. As a secular French Jew, Attal found himself deeply troubled by the fact that unfounded clichés and dangerous received wisdom about the Jewish people never seem to go away and could even be on the rise. We take a closer look at the film The Jews, or as it is in its French title, Ils sont partout, which roughly translates as They're Everywhere You Turn. Kate Moody has this report.
Littéralement envahi. Oui, les Juifs sont partout.
The Jews doesn't shy away from controversy, it embraces it. The all-star cast denounces anti-Semitism with a series of comedy sketches linked together by black humor.
Je vous pose la question.
C'est quoi être juif?
Oh merde.
Dis-moi que c'est pas vrai. C'est un juif.
Être juif, c'est transmettre.
Ça se transmet. Comme une maladie.
Hate crimes against the Jewish community have been on the rise in France. Director and star Yvan Attal decided to sound the alarm the best way he knew how.
Juif, tu vois bien.
Je suis un juif français et
I'm a French Jew and I feel a sense of unease, like a lot of people in France. So I wanted to make a film about it, a comedy, so people laugh, but also discuss, and maybe learn something.
Attal, who plays himself, had difficulty financing the film because of its sensitive subject matter. He drew on anecdotes and personal experience, even casting his real-life partner as a woman married to a Jew.
J'ai pas trouvé le film dangereux parce que
I didn't find the film dangerous. I think it's necessary. Yvan gave it his blood, sweat and tears to the very end. He couldn't let it go.
Why is there such dogged discrimination? Maybe because they're a minority, and often minorities pay a high price.
Nothing is off limits, from modern clichés to rewriting history. One irreverent sequence even sees a group of time-traveling Jews try to kill Jesus before he becomes a Messiah, hoping to wipe out one cause of deep-rooted hostility. It's a bold film that tackles discrimination head-on, with a strong message that anti-Semitism is anything but a laughing matter.
Vous me disiez que votre femme pense que vous êtes obsédé. Elle a un problème.
So this film is what you'd call an omnibus film, a film made up of various shorter mini-films. How do you think Attal handled that?
Well, the truth is, I think Yvan Attal is a very, very fine actor, but he's not much of a director. He made a film called My Wife is an Actress, an autobiographical alleged comedy about his long-standing relationship with Charlotte Gainsbourg that I found tedious. Then he made a sequel to it, which I found even more tedious. The Jews has a few sharp ideas to work with, but it just doesn't do enough with them. The setups are very tantalizing, and the result isn't. It should be both hilarious and educational. It's brave in its way, especially here in France, but it's also ineffectual when it should make people really sit up and take notice. It attempts to tackle some important issues. Some of the best French language actors working today are in it. The setups are promising, but the results are mostly as flat as, shall we say, a piece of matzah. He manages to crush the notion that there's some big Jewish conspiracy that controls the world, given that Jews make up 0.2% of the global population. We saw there a hint of the episode in which the Mossad sends their best agent back in time to kill baby Jesus in the cradle, so the Jews can't be blamed for killing the Messiah. We have Danny Boone as the ex-husband of Charlotte Gainsbourg, a Gentile. She says she married him because he's Jewish and she thought they'd be rich, and they're poor as can be. His parents then buy a lottery ticket, though.
Okay, so not a little bit inconsistent there in terms of how much it works. Well, we're moving to films with perhaps a little more staying power than that one. There's a new festival happening this week in Trouville-sur-Mer, and it's showcasing showing cult films or beloved films. What's the draw here?
Well, since we started today's show, somebody somewhere in France has probably done the paperwork to start a film festival. There's no shortage of those, but this one sounds rather promising and like a lot of fun. First of all, it's being held in the small resort town of Trouville, which is adjacent to Deauville. Trouville doesn't have any movie theaters. Deauville does. The Cult Film Festival organizers, therefore, have been obliged to build a cinema, a temporary one called the Ephemeral Cinema, 300 seats inside the Trouville Casino, which, for the length of the festival, will make it, I believe, the only movie theater in France where you have to show official ID in order to get in and see a movie. The competition has 7 films produced by 8 countries. In Trivia Land, they range in length from 40 minutes to 2 hours and 42 minutes. And they have 7 vintage cult films they're going to show that were chosen via votes on the internet. Now, we speak of cult phrases, cult expressions. In English, we have, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, from The Wizard of Oz, I'll be back from The Terminator, Dirty Harry saying make my day. Believe it or not, French speakers also have their own indelible cultural touchstones that began as movie dialogue, and a number of those catchy phrases hearkened from the first place cult film Les Tontins Flingueurs, also known as Crooks in Clover or Monsieur Gangster. It's from 1963. It was a French-Italian-German co-production, and I assure you every man, woman, and child in France has seen it at least once, almost twice. And like many a cult film before it turns out it was not a success when it first came out, but that has changed wildly since then.
Well, it certainly has a place in the hearts of French people. I'll agree with you there, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll leave you with a clip of Les Tontins Flingueurs, or Crooks in Clover, as it is in English. Remember, you can watch our show on the Encore website. You can also keep up with us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Les Tontons Flingueurs est un film instructif qui vous apprendra à régler vos comptes et à tirer à bon escient.
Oh, mes enfants, nous sommes en panne de sandwich.
Vous, qui rêvez d'une liquidation rapide de votre entourage immédiate, attendez d'avoir vu Les Tontons Flingueurs. Ne tuez pas sans savoir.